Right, so it doesn't always mean that I'm going to take their budget and dump it all into the website. We have to say, all right, well, it's one thing to make it and get it up online. It's another thing to let the world know it exists.
What's up, Mike Dickerman?
Man, a real honor to be here today, Mike.
Is it an honor for
I just never thought I'd get that call, you know?
Really?
Yeah. I'm just,
Why?
Just a regular guy.
You are a regular guy, but you're not a regular guy to me.
No.
You're special. You don't think so?
No, I know.
You are. You're one of the family members, man. You're like as they call it in the old days, you're the OG.
I was trying to figure out on my way up here how we originally met.
I know how we originally met.
How? Was it Rick?
Nope. We originally met. I went to Nikki's Tattoo.
Oh.
Nikki's Tattoo.
Yeah.
And she was wanting a website and was talking to you about doing a website, and I was getting a tattoo.
We did some old school flash animation for her just to try to get anything done for anyone who had a business to make it seem legit.
You were like green.
Yep.
And I asked Nikki, you did flash animation for her, like some still movement or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, who did your website? And she goes, I don't have one, but I know these guys that are doing them. And she gave me your name and gave me your number.
Man, I never knew that. All this time, I never knew that's where we were.
Nikki's Tattoo.
Wow.
And I opened up a business on Monroe Road called Lightning Mike's.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
And you were my first web developer and last web developer. Like, you have been with me for
22 years.
Has it been that long?
You were my first paying client.
I was your first paying.
My very first paying client.
That's amazing. That makes me feel honored.
Yeah, it's been a long ride, hasn't it? Look at you now, though.
How many websites you done for me? 20, 10? At least 10, maybe? Because you always used to call me every couple of years when you needed some money.
at least every 2 years when I needed a
you need a little boost of income. You're like, hey, Mike, we got to do a
Yeah,
refresh. Have you seen the new latest?
You're getting
greatest?
stale.
You're getting
time
stale,
to
brother. It's time to upgrade. I got sold a bag of good.
You're always on the latest and greatest, so it was an easy sell.
Be cutting
so
edge.
easy.
Cutting edge.
I was like, oh man, I'd save you for when I really needed money, and I'd be like, time to hit Mike up.
You know what the thing is? When you genuinely build a relationship and you trust the people that you have the relationship with, anything they come to you and say, when you have that trust, that level of trust, and you say, man, I need to do this for you, and I say, go ahead. Like I'm a sales guy, right? I'm in sales. That's what I do. And you obviously wear the sales hat as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it's easy to sell a salesman. Is that accurate?
Well, I can certainly see through a sales pitch. I think I can hear someone's pitch and know what of it is BS and what of it isn't.
You can read that?
I prefer people to just cut straight to it.
That's me. I'm straight. Did you ever think that I was sales pitching you?
No.
No.
Because you always set the standard for what was going to happen.
I set the standard?
Yeah, you'd reach into your pocket, you'd pull out a stack of hundreds like that big, and you'd just be like, how much do you need today? And I was like,
whatever.
And you're like, let's just start with 1,000. Let me know when that runs out. And at the time, that was like, dang, that was rent and groceries. That was good.
So I made some deposits into the bank account.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, the early years, man, I survived on you, I think.
That's awesome. Well,
for sure.
That makes me feel good. The one question I got for you is that you speak Spanish.
I do.
Are you very good at speaking Spanish?
Well, it's like anything else. I think the longer you are out of speaking Spanish on a regular basis, or any language for that matter, you'll start to let it slip.
So you were born where?
I was born in the Panama Canal Zone.
Panama Canal.
My mom's father worked as a radar. He ran the radar systems for the U.S. in the Panama Canal Zone when it was part of the U.S. territory. My dad was stationed there in the 70s during the Vietnam War era, and they met at church.
Really?
Because the Canal Zone was essentially like a little American community.
That's pretty cool.
And then I don't remember when the U.S. turned the Canal Zone back over to Panama. I think in the early 2000s or something. But yeah, so I was born in Panama.
Okay.
When I was 18 months old, moved to Colombia, South America.
Colombia, the cocaine capital of the world.
Well, now it's Peru.
Oh. How do you know that?
I don't know.
You just know?
It's just,
Did you watch it on Netflix?
I saw it somewhere, read an article.
Really?
But yeah.
Well,
The Peruvians they caught on.
The Peruvians caught on?
Mhm.
So Colombia is not the
Colombia's
number one?
number 2, I think,
They're
now.
number 2 now. Did you ever try cocaine? It's okay.
My mom might be watching this.
It's all right. Hey, Mom.
Yeah, in my 20s, I certainly got into my fair share of trouble. Yeah.
I like that.
I've sampled from the white lady.
You like the white lady?
As a dumb kid screwing around, yeah, I had a good
Never
time.
did it. Never
You
tried.
don't need to.
I'm
You're
all-
not missing anything.
I didn't think so.
Of all of the things that I messed around with in my early years, I just turned 44. I got a family.
44.
I'm
Early
older
years,
now.
I'm saying-
This is not the time in your life where you start to where you continue to do anything that's even remotely close to.
Yeah, you got responsibility.
Yeah, I got
So,
too much to lose.
Anyway, you're in Colombia, South America. You're how old?
I lived there until 1997 when I came to the U.S.
What were you doing in Colombia?
So my parents were missionaries. That topic in and of itself is massive, and it would take
Sure.
forever to explain it. But
Sure.
essentially,
what's a missionary?
so missionaries. It depends on who you ask. And
Give me the
and
3-second version.
So basically, missionaries, I think traditionally are people who are
Influencers and their belief.
they go to different parts of the world essentially to tell people about Jesus.
Okay. But they're
So-
influencers.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. They're influencers in what they believe, and they want other people to believe what they believe.
Right.
So they're
Well,
influencers.
you're trying to distill it down into something that's it's a departure.
But they're influencers.
Yeah, well, it depends on what you believe. So in the
Sure.
Bible, it basically says, "Go into all the world and,
Sure.
and tell everyone
Save
about Jesus."
everyone.
Right?
Save them all. So you went to Colombia.
So the organization my parents worked for translates the Bible into the goal every language on earth, and so my parents weren't Bible translators, but they were what we called support personnel. So my dad had a master's degree in agriculture, and he did community development programs. He ran the farm where our community produced its food. My mom ran a print shop where she printed literacy materials being produced for the translators, things like that.
Right. Agriculture. So
Mm-hmm.
what were you doing there in agriculture?
Well, I wasn't doing
Your
anything.
dad, right?
Yeah.
So what was he there for other than transcripting the Bible in different languages?
He was there in support of people who were translating the Bible.
Okay.
So, but his job was specifically to do farming programs,
What did
and
he-
sometimes that could be anything from digging a well in a community that doesn't have water, helping people figure out a better way to work with the land that they have,
Right.
bringing in farming techniques, teaching indigenous people how to produce.
Crops?
No, not necessarily, but yeah, like how if there were language groups or indigenous populations that wanted to produce something, a
Right.
crop or whatever, he did quite a bit of that
Did you
sort
see
of.
much violence when you were there?
Indirectly, yeah. I mean, Colombia has been in a state of violence for the past 80 years. It all goes back to mid-century. You hear about things like Che Guevara, for example. You know that?
I've heard the name, yeah.
So there was this big movement in Latin America in the 50s and 60s where the people were fed up with the corruption and greed and the people in poverty, no access to education, and so there was this big uprising throughout Latin America. And sort of the classic freedom fighter, and that turned into armed conflict between these different groups. In Colombia, it was the M19. In the 80s, the Incendiario Luminoso was the Shining Path guerrillas. They were also in Peru. And then in Colombia, the FARC, F-A-R-C. And they made a living kidnapping people.
Kidnapping.
Yeah, car bombs, blowing up the...
So what would you do when you kidnap somebody? You just hold them for ransom?
Yep.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And people would pay to get them back? Is this corporations that
Generally-
would pay,
generally
that
speaking.
had people over there, that kind of thing?
Correct, yeah.
Did you buy insurance if you ever went to Colombia?
We did not have K&R insurance, kidnapping and ransom insurance.
Yeah.
That's something where, like my last year in high school, I lived in a very remote place. You could only get there really in a bush plane or in a four-wheel drive over the Andes Mountains out in the middle of nowhere. And it was a little community of Americans that lived out in the middle of Colombia, where the Amazon River Basin becomes
Was it dangerous?
the central grasslands. I think by our standards of living here, maybe, yeah.
Was it venomous creatures, snakes,
Oh, yeah.
bugs?
Yeah, poisonous snakes.
Did you ever get bitten by anything?
Everything. I've been bitten by everything. I almost lost the tip of my finger to a piranha. That's that scar that comes across the top.
Mm-hmm. Really?
We live near a lake. I mean, I spent my childhood alligator hunting and
alligator hunting. You've caught an alligator?
Many.
Really? How do you catch them?
There's two ways to go about it. If we were out for food, we would bow hunt them at night with flashlights.
Seriously?
So you get out in the front of a canoe. Someone's paddling real quiet. Someone's up
and you
front.
Would eat the alligator. How's it taste?
Tastes good.
Does it?
Yeah.
What's it taste like? Chicken? White meat?
Yeah.
Is it white meat?
I hate to say
chewy?
that it tastes like chicken because
Is it
that's
chewy?
it can be. It can be
Is it
if you parboil
Is
it
it
and then
game?
fry it. No, it's like chicken nuggets. Yeah, it's good. It's like Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets.
Love it. Can't wait to have some alligator.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's good. If we were just out for entertainment,
Yeah.
one of us we'd tie a rope to the end of like about an 8-foot stick, coil it around with a noose on the end, and we'd hang off the front of the canoe with a headlamp, and they're not going to go anywhere if there's a light in their eyes. Kind of like deer. Once you spotlight them, they just kind of sit there on the surface with their eyes sticking out, and we just put that noose over their head and just yank that rope when it got around their jaw.
Yeah.
And the first thing they do is jerk their head and start thrashing. The stick falls off the coil you've made, and now you've got an alligator pulling you around in a canoe.
That's for fun?
Yeah, and you just have to, you slowly pull on it, and then they take off, and they pull you around, and they eventually tire out.
It's your motor.
Paddles.
I love it.
Yeah, it was all canoes. There was no motors back there.
I know, but the alligator
that was the- yeah,
that was
for
the
sure.
motor, man.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, that's cool as hell.
But they're caimon. They're called caimons. They're actually in the crocodile family, but they're pretty small. They're not as big as like traditional. They can be, I guess. They can be much bigger
So
than
what kind
alligators.
of bugs did you see when you were out there?
Everything.
Like what?
Spiders, tarantulas.
Did you have any pets?
Had a lot of pet boa constrictors growing up.
Boa
I went
constrictor.
through this snake period where
Did
I had
you?
like all sorts of different types of snakes.
Really?
Boas, I had cages all over the place around my house, and
Did you have a house
we
there?
had red-tailed boas, and yep,
Did you have an actual real house?
Mhm.
Where was the outhouse?
it was made of brick.
Did you have an outhouse?
We had a real bathroom. We
Yeah.
had septic tanks.
Really?
Yeah.
In the middle of nowhere
Mhm.
of Columbia.
Think
Is this place still there?
It's ruins now because there was we had to leave very quickly.
Why?
We sort of because the Civil War that was happening all around us got closer and closer and closer to us, and the Colombian Army thought it was in our best interest as a group of foreigners that they should park a little army base on the other side of our airstrip, which was 600 meters from my house, and so
You had to
they
get on a plane
became
and get out of there.
they became the target. We were fine there for 30 years,
And all of a sudden you got to.
Then all of a sudden we have a little army detachment across the airstrip from us, and then
Y'all had a plane there in case you needed to go somewhere.
Yep, four of
Who
them.
funded all this?
Typically in the missionary world, churches back here in the United States support. So we'll just say, for example, the Dickerman family, maybe they had a $2,000 a month budget. So a church in Michigan that my dad used to go to as a kid maybe gave him $500. Some church in North Carolina. Every 4 years we would come to the United States for the summertime on what was called deputation, which is when we would get in a car like, what's that Chevy Chase movie where they were driving around in the station wagon? European Vacation? No,
European Vacation.
The one, anyway, it was like that. We'd come to the U.S., we'd land in Miami, and we would hit all of these churches all over the place where my parents knew someone or knew someone who knew someone. And then my dad would get up and have his little spiel and tell them about what we were doing, and then people would say, we want to support you, and we had to build support and maintain it in the U.S. Donations.
So you would just go get donations from churches, come home for how many months? 3?
4 years.
4 years to get donations?
No, we would be here for 3 months or so, and then
How
we'd
much
go.
would you raise?
I have no idea.
Guess.
A couple grand.
That's it?
That's all it took.
So how much did you live off of when you were in Colombia? Like what was a budget a month?
Oh, I
financially?
mean, look, I was a kid. How much did it cost for your parents to raise you when you were a kid? I don't.
Yeah, I don't know.
Who knows?
Yeah. But you were eating
I'm
off-
guessing not much because Colombia is a really easy place to,
money was,
money goes a long way there.
yeah. Did you have a store? Could you go anywhere and get anything?
Yeah, my dad actually ran what we called the commissary. It was probably about, I don't know, 1,000 square foot max, and it had basics, cereal and stuff.
How many people were on this little village?
70 families, about 350
So
people.
it's a pretty big place.
1 square mile. 70 people lived in 1 square mile.
That's a lot, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. They all had houses. Everybody built their
Yeah.
own house.
The first people who came down there to set up this base, so to speak, this community went out there in the 50s or early 60s, just like in 4-wheel drives and said, this is the place. And then built the first houses, built the airstrip.
Wow, that's cool.
The thing is like, you may have 24 translators working out of a place like that. So in Colombia, there's 350 different languages in Colombia in the indigenous groups. And so if a translator needed to, all these translators would need to work out of one central place, right? And so the center of the country made the most sense. So we created this community. Well, translators have kids. Well, then we need a school. So then there's teachers, people who were missionary teachers, and they would come down and we had a little school. And then when you have teachers and translators, all of a sudden you need an airstrip, and you have pilots, and the pilots have kids, and the pilot's wife is going to work at the commissary. And then, so everyone sort of had a job. And after you get the core group of workers, if you will, into that town, you have a little functioning town. We had electricity, our own generator system, our own phone system, 3 numbers, 3 digits were our phone numbers.
That's pretty cool.
My phone number my whole life was 446.
446.
Mm-hmm.
Your number 446, like a jail cell. 446.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Anyway, so when did you start shooting a gun? I'm sure you had guns there.
Really, my first exposure to shooting guns was probably when I was 10 or 15. I had a little .22 rifle. But real guns, when the military base came in across the way, we'd go out there, and it's not like approaching a military base in the United States where there's guards and
just
gates.
walk up,
We just walked up the hill, little white American kids, barefoot.
What's up?
Saying, "Show me your gun. Show me your gun."
Show me your gun.
And they'd be, "You want to shoot it?" And we're like, "Yeah, we want to shoot it." And so my first, real gun was a Galil, Israeli Galil.
A Galil.
Galil. It's like the Israeli version of the AK-47, but much
cool.
nicer.
Right, much nicer. Sick.
Yeah.
So when did you leave Colombia to come to the U.S. full time?
When I graduated from high school. So I lived in Michigan when I was in 2nd grade.
Yep.
And then again when I was in 8th grade. But other than that, 2nd grade and 8th grade school years, I lived in Colombia the whole rest of my life. So I moved here. I got to Charlotte on the 4th of July, 1997. I lived in Waxhaw. And I've basically been here ever since. I liked it. I had traveled around the U.S. in the year or two after I got here and looked at everywhere in the U.S. I loved the western states, but in the end I was like, man, Charlotte has everything. It's close to the mountains. It's close to the beach. It's a small town, but it seems like it's on the move. And I thought, this is where I'm going to set down some roots, and I've just been here ever since.
It's a good choice.
Yep.
Yeah. How many kids you got?
I have 4 daughters.
4 daughters.
Yep.
Did you ever want to try for a boy?
Yep, 4 times we tried for a boy.
Oh.
Or more,
Don't
actually.
tell that to the daughters.
Oh, they know. I gave up. With our first kid, we were so sure it was a boy.
Right.
And then it wasn't. And we were like, oh, man. Like, we were so sure. Yeah. We were a little bit heartbroken, you know?
Yeah.
And then I was like, where's this idea that I have to have a son come from, you know?
Yeah.
Like I think as men, we've always had, like, when we were younger, we're like, someday I'm going to have a son. We're going to do son stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But when I saw my daughter, it was just like,
heaven.
Why do I need a son?
Yeah.
Yeah, I still wanted one, but it wasn't all of a sudden, it didn't take the same priority as,
Sure.
you know.
I get it.
But, looking back on it now, like, my daughters hunt with me. They're like boys. Like, if you're willing to hang out with them and spend time with them, they're going to go do whatever you want to do.
They just want attention.
Yeah.
They want to do what dad wants to do.
Yeah.
That's cool. So the other question is, did you go to college?
I did not. Well, depends on how you define college. I moved to, when I first got here in 97, I was really here to get my mom settled in. My dad had just passed away 4 days after we got back to the U.S., or 4 days after they came to the U.S. My mom didn't want to live in Michigan, which was where I was when I first got here. And so right away, she wanted to sell the house, moved to Waxhaw where she had friends. And I said, I'll move down there with you and help you get set up. And in a year, I'll come back. I was going to go to Western Michigan University and study aviation, be a pilot. And I got here. It was hot and sticky, just like Columbia, which I think was the biggest thing that I was like, maybe I should stay here. Because back in Michigan, it was freaking cold and nasty. It's a nice place, but
yeah,
I wasn't interested in snow.
Right.
And so I thought, what can I do with a year? And I was sitting up late at night, and I saw this TV commercial for ECPI, College of Technology, and it's like 1 year programs, become a computer expert, you know, and I was just like, well, I don't want to become a computer expert, but I was completely computer illiterate. And so I thought it would be a good use of my year here to just get up to speed with technology. I mean, where I grew up, there was no technology. So I did not know a whole lot, not only about technology, but American culture, pop culture. I mean, imagine being moved to Mozambique after living in the United States your whole life until you were 19, and then they said, "Hey, time to go to your homeland." Like it was that different, you know. So
Do you still have friends in Colombia?
I do actually. One of my classmates moved back there and lives there.
Really?
So yeah,
In the same, not the same area, but
in Bogota, in the capital city. Yeah,
you keep in touch?
yeah. I've actually been down there twice in the past couple of years.
That's cool.
And I'm going again in February.
I'd like to go.
Let's go, man. It's easy.
Yeah, but I want to go with somebody that knows the language, knows the people, knows where to go. I'm not going there as a gringo. Is that right, the term?
I don't know,
gringo?
man. You'd be tough in Colombia because, like, you got to keep a low profile when you're cruising around in Colombia.
That's what I mean.
You're a big old white guy.
Yeah.
You're
tattoos.
loud,
I look
bombastic.
I look like I'm in the military.
They're going to see you coming 100 miles away. They're going to call some guy up on the hill.
Come
He's
get
going to
him.
call some guy down in the valley. And before you know it,
I grow a beard, grow my hair out, look like I ain't bathed in like,
you would stand out like a sore thumb.
really?
Yeah.
I'm not going then. All right.
You'll be all right. Colombia has really come a long way. It's not as dangerous as it used to be.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're over here learning computers.
Yep.
And,
So I go and I get on, and I went over to ECPI, and I saw your commercial, and, you know, so they got me into the Tech 2 program where you learn essentially how to fix motherboards and fix
Right,
computers and build
right.
computers. And I went through the 1-year program, and they, to their credit, they had a great, like, their department for helping you find a job after school was, like, pretty good.
Oh, really?
And
Yeah, good job placement.
Yeah, plus in the late 90s, if you knew anything about computers
They would
and,
hire you.
and networking,
It was
it
like,
didn't matter. It was
come
the
on.
boom. It was the
It
tech
was a boom.
boom.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. And so I got a job just like that. And like, after I had been in school for 8 months, I then got my own condo in Pineville. I ended up getting a roommate from college and from school, and then I had friends, and then all of a sudden Michigan just evaporated into the past. Like I was here within 6 months. I knew I wasn't going anywhere.
That's cool.
But so yeah, I eventually I had that first job out of school.
What was your job?
I was a computer help desk support operator.
Hello, my name is Michael.
That's right.
I would like to fix your computer right now.
Yeah.
Is that bad to say? You think I was accurate on the description of when I get tech support from Apple now? Was that accurate?
Yeah, it could be. I try not to call support.
Exactly. I just call Micah. Hey, Micah, how do you fix this? I got a network of friends I can call now.
Yeah, I ended up at Bank of America for a few years, and then what I saw that websites, you know, in 99, 98, it was website. If you had a website and it was like a 3 or 4 page, what would be considered nonsense now, you were getting paid like $40,000, and I was like, man, I've got to figure that out. Can't be that hard.
Yeah, and you figured it out.
Yeah, one of the things when I first got here, I had no idea what to do with myself. My dad was gone. I didn't know anything, and so I thought, what tools do I have? Well, you know how to speak Spanish. So the first thing I did was I went to Staples and had business, and I got a pager, and I got business cards that said Mike Dickerman, Spanish English translator, and the pager number. And I stuck those on coffee shop boards, cork boards all over town. And within like a week, I got a call from this guy who sold insurance, and he was like, I have to do insurance presentations to all of these businesses in Monroe that have foreign workers, and they need to understand the insurance policy that they have so that they know they can go to the doctor. And I was like, yeah, no problem. And so I started working for myself like right off the bat.
That's pretty sick.
Then I went to school.
Innovative. You were thinking outside the box.
Well, look, the United States is slam full of opportunity, and people will argue this point all, 6 ways from Sunday. Well, so-and-so doesn't have the opportunity that so-and-so does. And well,
You came here, knew nothing.
Had nothing.
Started, you saw a commercial.
I looked around
Went
and I
to
thought,
school.
look at this place. This is a smorgasbord of opportunities. I
US
didn't sit around asking someone for help. I didn't complain that no one was helping me. I just looked at what was available, saw an opportunity, and filled the gap. And I've been doing that ever since.
Why can't people do that now?
Because they grow up in it. If you live in a place, like, if you live in the United States and you're just a middle class American, and you grew up in a middle class family. Your parents take care of you. You have to mow the lawn on Saturday. You earn
A couple chores.
you got some chores,
Got a few cash.
maybe even an allowance. You know, if you
little
got
change
some,
in your pocket.
yeah.
Okay.
Then you have never had to figure anything out for yourself, and so I think a lot of people just don't see it. They don't see the forest for the trees, I guess. You know, if you grow up in a place where you've never had to struggle for anything, then it's hard to recognize opportunities. And I think a lot of people think that there's some big process to being in business, and there's some trick or some rule or some ladder. The ladder is a fictitious idea. It's a flat ground that you just have to walk through. You don't have to climb anything.
Right.
You know, but yeah, I think. Look, in Colombia, we lived in a remote place, and if you needed something that didn't exist, you made it.
You made it.
Yeah, you know, if there was a tool.
If you wanted to go down the river, you went and lassoed a crocodile.
If your motorcycle broke down, we were bikes down there.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay. Like little
Just
Hondas, Yamahas.
old 70s Hondas.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
I had a 1978 CB 125.
Love it. That's sick.
But if your bike broke down,
That
you
bike's probably
took it
worth
apart
money
and
today.
fixed it. You know,
that's cool.
And there was always someone there to like sort of say, yeah, you got to take that thing apart, and then they'd come back and.
You mess with it long enough, you'll figure it out.
Yeah, and that's kind of the whole thing when I got here. I was just
You
like,
had
man.
that kind of like something breaks off, need to fix it. There's a problem. You found that there was a problem, and then you wanted to fix that problem.
Yeah.
And then when you fix that problem, you want to get paid for it because it was a need that not many people were doing.
Yeah.
You
Here,
found a
everything is given to you.
Yeah.
You know, so. Yeah, I think problem solving. You know, I think I was raised to deal with the problem,
Yeah.
and it didn't involve getting someone else to do
How
it.
do we teach the world today to deal with problems?
Take their phones away from them?
Yeah.
You got all the answers. You got the sum total of human knowledge in the palm of your hand, and you're 12. You're not even looking at the knowledge.
And I
You're
was telling my kids one day when they were younger, I said, listen, guys, I think they were like 10, 12. I said, guys, I was in school. We had a typewriter in college. Typewriter, like click, click,
Yeah.
click, click, click,
Yeah,
click, right? I had ribbons. I had ink. I had to use whiteout for misspelling. And then I had to use thesauruses, dictionaries, microfiche.
You had to actually go to the library.
I had to go to the library and
look
research.
something up.
I had to
Yeah.
look up old papers.
And if the library didn't have that book, you had to go to another library.
Yeah, or you had to figure something out.
Mm-hmm.
But
To make it up.
Research. It was called research. You had to actually go and investigate and research to find the knowledge. Now, hey Siri, what time is it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's the world we live in today, man. It's instantaneously. We're a drive-through society. We're a throwaway society, don't you think?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%.
Like you buy something, it breaks. I'll throw that shit away.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or get the latest and greatest
Get
of
the
everything.
latest and greatest.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do we teach people now? Is schools obsolete?
I think that public,
get back.
man, you know, that's maybe out of my wheelhouse a little bit to speak intelligently about our educational system.
Maybe we can say that.
I mean,
We don't go down too big of a pipe road, but we just need to teach.
what my
common
kids are
sense,
being
man.
asked to learn is nonsense
It's
compared to
nonsense.
what, like when I was in 9th grade, 10th grade, we had to learn the capital cities. Every country in the world, its capital city and its major river system.
Yeah, I remember that too.
I mean, it was just like
the
nuts.
Nile and this and
World history.
world history. What happened to all that?
My kids aren't even being taught American history as far as I'm concerned. Like,
What are they learning?
they're learning how to get to the end of the day.
That's what they're learning.
Yeah. And so what I do is I try, you know, like, I think so much has to happen from a political perspective to change any of that. And our government is so corrupt and politics are so out of control that it eclipses, there's no path forward for improvement as long as our government is not right there for the right reasons.
Yeah, they're enabling everybody.
Well, it's just that, yeah, I mean, look, if you're a politician, you've been in Washington for 50 years, you stopped caring about the education in Union County a long time ago.
I mean, how can a guy go into he can go into the government at like 35, come out at 82,
Yeah.
88, like he dies
Term limits, man.
How do we do it?
But you know what? They're never going to approve that either because
They want that money,
they
they
got
want
that
the power,
control, man.
it's control,
At the
power.
end of the day, it's up to us as parents to take the time to try to educate our kids and to push them
Right.
farther.
So you started your business doing websites when?
So I was working at the Bank of America.
Okay.
And I met somebody who was in in a web company. And at the back then, there was really only one big company in town that was doing websites.
Who was that?
IXL.
IXL.
Huge .com. And in the bubble, when the bubble burst, they imploded. But everyone who worked there then went and started all of these web design companies. And so there's a time like right around 2000, 2001 where there's just new web design companies popping up. And there's only 4 or 5 of them that were, in my mind back then, the guys that I watched, eDreams, Carbon House, Oxygen Internet. Those were the 3 to follow when I was sort of coming into it. And so, and I had a bit of a creative bent. I've never been a book, academic, but I was working in IT and I was looking at what was happening and I thought, man, it cannot be that hard. And so what I did was I'd go to Barnes & Noble after work every night and I'd look at whatever book there was about HTML and I'd look at it and I'd read it and I'd put it back on the shelf and I'd go back the next night. And then I got a hacked version of what is now Dreamweaver, just like a programming, interface.
Yeah.
Tried little things out, started getting the hang of it, and then realized like, okay, I can make a Word now link to another page, but it just looks like crap. It looks like a Word document with blue lines, right? So you have to make it look good. And so I thought, all right, how do I become a good designer? And so back to Barnes & Noble, and I thought, I went and looked at the magazine rack one night, and I thought, these magazines are $15, and it's like Oprah magazine or something like it. This magazine is $3. This is a fancier looking magazine. I'm like, that means that someone, a fancy designer, designed this thing. So I'd open up the expensive magazines and I'd lay them out and I'd look at how the text was on the page and how they positioned a photo. And then I'd say, all right, I'm going to go try to recreate this magazine layout in HTML. And so I'd put the thing away and I'd go and try it out. And I got to where I figured out how to lay graphics in there and then how to layer things and then how to, I just sort of taught myself by looking at, like,
here's what someone else is doing. How do I duplicate
here's what
that?
a paid designer in New York City is doing right now. They're making super high-end magazines, right?
Yeah, they
You look at a Cigar Aficionado versus, like, Guns and Ammo. The Cigar Aficionado, the layouts, the colors that they use, the texts, the fonts, it all means something. And so I didn't know what all that meant. I just knew that was cool and this is not.
One thing's cool, and you determine that by the price tag of the magazine.
Yes, I looked at it and I thought they've determined this to be higher value.
$15 for a magazine,
Yep.
$3 for a magazine.
Mm-hmm.
So they think the content in this magazine is worth.
Correct.
I love it.
And I took that idea and developed over years my abilities as a designer. And then along the way, like, people sometimes ask me, like, what business are you in? And I'm in the business of relationships.
100%.
It's 100% relationships. And so when I
We've
meet
been together
someone,
22 years.
Yeah.
I was your first paying client, and now you're on the Real Talk with Mike Burke.
with Mike Burke,
Isn't
I
that
finally
cool?
made it.
You made it. You think you made it? Listen, you've always made it in my eyes, buddy. I looked up to you, man.
Whatever.
I used to look up to you.
Well,
You did something I couldn't do. See, that's what most people don't realize about looking up to other people. When you look up to other people, it's because, like Mike over there, great guy, smart, intelligent, doing videos and doing things similar to you. But I look up to him because he can do things that I cannot do. I
Yeah.
could possibly turn into you and go research and spend hours and days and weeks and try to figure it out. But I always come up with the scenario that my dad said: do what you do best, pay for the rest.
Yeah.
Do what you do best, pay for the rest.
Yep.
And I admire you and your ability to sit in front of a computer and design. I pay you lots of money over the last probably 20 years. And lots of money to somebody is one thing. Lots of money to somebody is another thing. But I value you, and I know that you're worth what I pay you and more.
Well, thank you.
So that is respect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, at the end of the day, I think that we're sort of the both kind, or that we're similar in our hustle.
Yeah.
You hustle in your way, doing your thing, and I sort of hustle in mine. And all along the way, and I can't sit back and take credit. Like, I have 13 people on staff, so it's not like I do this by myself anymore. But what I recognized early was, if you meet someone who knows something that you don't know, ask them about it.
Absolutely.
Let them teach you.
Yes.
Like, being teachable, I think, is one of the single most valuable traits that I have. And I think my dad probably taught me that. Like, know that everyone you run into, no matter who they are or how insignificant they may seem to you, they know something you don't. And
why do you ask them for help?
Knowledge, man.
How powerful is that, though?
It's everything.
It's everything.
Yeah. People ask me now, how do you get business? I'm like, not relationships, man.
Yeah. Why are relationships?
If you heard someone talking about a website, you'd say, hey, you need to use Dickerman.
100%.
Right? And that's how every
I've
time
referred people to you all the time.
Yeah.
Or at least people I thought that could afford you. See, I learned early on that I referred a lot of people to you, and you're like, Mike, I love you, bro, but like this dude's got fucking like $200.
There were some low ballers there.
And then I finally sent you a couple good guys.
Yeah, you did.
The thing is, man, your talent is worth what you're worth. And the thing is, I always use cars as an analogy, and I'm going, okay, man, when I met you, you were a Honda Civic. Now you're a turbo Porsche. I mean, now you're like inquisitive. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're now that cigar magazine from New York.
Well, I'd like to think of myself more as an AT4.
AT4.
Or a big, nice truck.
There you go. But
I'm a simple man.
Yeah, but you're elegant.
But I like nice things.
But you design elegantly.
Yeah.
That's why I said turbo Porsche, because it's an elegant car.
Well, and sometimes I think one of the things too is that you always have to be. It's about what the customer wants and needs and what's best for their viewers. It's not what I think is the coolest thing. It's not what I think is the newest thing.
Right.
I look at the audience of the person I'm working for. It might be, in your case, people who want their windows tinted or paint protection. You have to speak to them through design in their language.
Right.
I might have a medical facility, and I got to speak to their people in their language. And
so
so
you have to do research.
You have to be willing to do different things for different people, and it's not always about you getting credit for it.
Right. Who's your most high-profile client?
Oh,
high profile. Like, who's like the most well-known? Like, what do they do?
I mean, I have a $1 billion a year company in Singapore that no one's ever heard of.
You do a website for a $1 billion company in Singapore.
Yep, but I also do like mom and pop restaurant down the street. I have.
What do you charge
about
$1 billion company for their website? 50 grand?
I got about 300 clients, and they're all over the board. Some people I work with on a daily basis all the time, and I'm on a retainer with them. And some people whenever they need something, they give me a call. Of course, we do website hosting and maintenance and services. But like I sort of assess somebody from the jump and figure out what bucket they're going to fall into.
Right. Some
people, when you sit down with them, they're in a world where they're dealing with huge numbers. And so if you come at them with a small number, they're going to think something's wrong.
Yeah, you're not, whoa, you're too cheap.
Yeah. And so you look at like how many employees they have, what kind of revenue they're doing. See, half of being a good web designer is being a good business person. You have to understand that person's business if you want them to make more money and then give you credit for being part of that. So I want my clients' dial to move. I want them to say, dang, since Dickerman started, we've been doing great.
That's what I say.
I don't want them to be like, oh, it's a cool website. Yeah, that's cool. But
are we ready for a refresh already on our website?
Nah, we should just let it chill for a little bit.
Let it chill.
You're not ready.
Ooh, we got some ice.
There's so much. There's so much tied into that thing. You got to ease into that.
I love it. There's a few design things that I would like to change. I think that our graphic designer, Rick, and you and our SEO guys are fighting because they want the words and the content and the SEO and the search. But I got to make it look cool, man. I mean, when the guy hits on the website, I want him to click on another button. How do you do that and still get the content out there for the audience to go search for it? How do you satisfy both?
Well, sometimes you have to look. You have to say, is the look more important than the money you're going to make off of a more efficient click?
That is true. See that? You heard it here, guys. Marketing 101. So, if you were meeting with a small business that's basically, say, 3 employees, they've got $5,000 budget for a website, but they don't have a receptionist. They don't have an ad budget for Google. They don't have an ad budget for Facebook, but they want to spend $5,000 on a website. You do business consulting and stuff. What would you advise a 3-man, $250,000 a year business that now wants a $5,000 website, and that's their budget? What would you guide that person to do?
I think the biggest misconception is that the website's going to do something for you the minute it gets up there, and you're never going to have to touch it again. A website is a good website is an ongoing, ever-changing, constantly evolving machine that you have to feed. It's like a store. Your light bulbs are going to burn out. You have to take the trash out. Just because it's a website doesn't mean it's not going to break. It's not going to need to be tweaked. Some piece of code is going to get outdated. Like, it's an ongoing thing. So if someone came to me and they said, like, I deal with some clients have like 100,000, like, say you have 100,000. With that client, we're going to space that out into 10 equal monthly payments, and then we're going to use our time to maximize their sales. And so for them, it might look a little different. Someone said, hey, I have 5,000, what should I do? I'm going to say, all right, you need to spend $3,000 on your website, and you need to spend $2,000 on promoting it. Right? So it doesn't always mean that I'm going to take their budget and dump it all into the website. We have to say, all right, well, it's one thing to make it and get it up online. It's another thing to let the world know it exists. So
that's important information.
Yeah.
Yeah. Business 101.
And people never want to tell you their budget. They want to go through this song and dance. And what I tell people is, look, my job is to be a good steward of your budget. It's not to tell you how much you should spend or not spend. Now, personally, we have a 44-hour minimum. And so
what's that mean?
That basically means that we're going to start at $6,600 and go up from there. And
You're $6,600?
Yeah.
That's your minimum?
Yeah.
So if you call if you don't have $6,600, sorry.
I'm going to send them to somebody who does $5,000 websites.
That's smart, though. You've outgrown the $5,000.
Well, it's just that I don't have time for people who there's so much of the business analysis part of what goes into what we do that if you don't have or are unwilling to spend a certain amount of money, then what I'm going to do for you isn't going to be anything more than a pretty website. And you're not going to continue to grow my billings together.
Sunstoppers.com. What do you think money-wise over all the content, all the creation, all the videos, what do you think we have in money in that website?
How much have you spent across the board, everywhere, all the teams?
Yeah.
I would guess that you're somewhere in the $50,000 a year.
$50,000 a year.
Between marketing, advertising, leads,
just on
distribution, shops,
$50 grand a year just to keep some.
But how much does that generate you?
This is true. But here, what did it cost to create and get it alive?
Oof. Man, that's piercing the veil, man. You can't see behind the screen.
100 grand.
How much did it cost me?
No, all of us. Like me, the budget. Like when people look at sunstoppers.com and they look at the Sunstoppers model. And they look at me and they go, oh, man, you got a really nice website. You got traffic. You've got landing pages. You've got search. You've got all these things. And they go, what that website cost you? 10, 15 grand? And I go,
I like to look at it like it cost you about the same as one really good employee would have been if they specialized in database development, graphic design, like all those things.
Grand.
It's the cost of a good employee.
Yeah, I mean, when you tell people you have $100,000 invested in your website and you spend $50,000 a year maintaining it.
But 90% of what makes your website incredible is people don't see. It's all the stuff. It's the gears behind it that are all,
it's like seeing a Honda Civic with a V8 twin turbo motor underneath, but you don't see what's underneath the hood.
Exactly.
I love it.
There's a lot going on back there that's generating income. And that's a big thing too, is that what I try to do now, like I can say I have a 44-hour minimum. It's broken into design and development and all these other things, right? But one of the things we try to look at is how much money are we going to make for you if we do this?
Right.
So we might say, hey, look, your bottom line is going to go up by $200,000 this year, or $1 million this year, or $2 million this year, because you're spending $50,000, and then all of a sudden that number doesn't seem so crazy anymore. Right. And so it's I think people look at websites like they're a widget, and if that's how they come into it, then that's all it's ever going to be.
Yep.
And it's based on trust, too. I asked someone the other day who wanted an e-commerce website what your monthly revenue was, and they wouldn't tell me. They're like, well, I don't know why that's relevant. And I was like, look, not for nothing, lady, but I'm going to know every single thing about how your business operates, including how much money this thing is making in the first 2 weeks that we get started. Because without that information, I can't make you twice that. You know what I mean?
Well, you got to build the foundation strong enough to support the growth.
Right. And there's a lot that goes into knowing, that sort of thing, like how much traffic are you going to get, how much security vulnerability are you going to have.
Sunstoppers.com get? Do you know? Like, what's a peak for us? I have no idea.
Not off the top of my head, but of the 300 and so clients that I have in my server systems, you are the highest resource bandwidth hog of all of them.
Did you hear that on this podcast? 300 clients. Sunstoppers.com has the highest bandwidth
by a long shot.
By a long shot.
Yeah.
Because we spend a ton of money promoting it. Mm-hmm. Correct?
Yep.
That's the only way you get that, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you spend more in promotional advertising for your shops and stuff than any other client that I have in any sort of similar line. Yeah.
And when people listen to this podcast and they say, "Oh, Mike Burke, he built this company and he's so successful and he's spoiled and blah blah blah," I'm constantly feeding the animal that cost money to feed.
Yeah, there isn't a day that goes by where someone in my shop is not working on something in there.
I love it.
And I'm not even all of it. There's the lead guys. There's there's so many more
there's a team of people.
Yeah, and they're all doing something.
We have a team of people to support the animal, the engine that's been created, and it's an engine, and it needs to be fed. It's an animal.
And it took 20 years to build to fine tune the system that produces that well.
20 years.
Yeah.
You and I, 20 years. So when people look back at the success of Sunstoppers, it took 20 years of a relationship to build the infrastructure of what this company has built.
Yeah. And fights.
And
hustling.
And hustles.
And long nights and early mornings and 7-day weeks. Yeah, absolutely.
Am I hard to deal with?
Sometimes.
Was I hard early on? I was easy early on, then I got difficult.
You like
later.
to have your fingers in everything.
Do I really?
Yeah. You like to used to come over to my office back in the old days, and you'd be like, "I'm going to come over for a few hours today." I was like, "Oh no!" And you pull up a chair behind me, and you'd be like, "Just move that over here and let's change this color a little bit." Yeah, like that. And then,
oh, I loved it. That was the good old days, man.
But you've got to where now you've got the right people handling the right stuff, and
it takes time, man.
Yeah,
you got to build.
You're
that
busy.
trust.
You're busy building the empire.
Yeah, I'm just putting fuel on it, man.
Yeah.
I love helping people.
You do. You've helped me out a lot.
No, not just you, but I love helping the other, people who've entrusted Sunstoppers, the brand, the name, and myself. They can, you know how you said earlier.
You're very generous with the people who have allowed you to be who you are and just trusted the process.
Just trust the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, the process it's proven.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've proven ourselves.
Yeah.
Trust the process. So.
Anyway. People from the outside are always going to look at success and be negative about it.
I think it's fuel. Every time I get any type of negativity, I smile and go, at least I'm being noticed. And, I was telling in the last podcast, I talked to a young lady and I said, you know what, it's okay to like yourself. It's okay to think that you're good at what you do. It's okay.
Confidence is
key.
Right after a relationship.
I think people flock to me because they know when they deal with me that I got their back. Like, I got you, bro. Like, you're on my shoulders now. I got you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're going to ride this wave with me, right? Let's go. And but it's okay to be confident. But I never, ever claim that I'm the best. I always claim that it'll take the best to beat me.
I like that.
A just simple rule of listen, I will shake your hand. If you beat me, you earned it. Because I work hard. Right?
That's right.
Right? Like in martial arts. I was a martial artist for a while, and I basically loved the discipline of martial arts. And if someone tapped me out, like in jiu-jitsu or just whatever, sparring, we have a love for each other. As soon as it's over, the fight is over, the working hard against, the battle of working against each other, I shake his hand. I say, "Hey, man, good job, bro.
Yeah,
you earned that."
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if you worked hard for something and someone beats you at your craft, you're going to be like, I give that dude some props, man.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
In sports, somebody dunks on you, you're like, "Bro, you just dunked on me, man." Anyway, who do you look up to? Who is your idol as far as this world of websites? I mean, who you claiming?
Man, I had a couple of guys come along early who were in the industry and recognized what I was doing,
right?
And said, "Come with me and let me show you some stuff."
You had some mentors?
Oh yeah, probably the most influential is a guy named Michael O'Brien. He had an ad agency here in town, and he was like, and I met him just randomly at this real estate office. I was using their Wi-Fi, and he
That's
walked
how great
in.
relationships are met.
Yeah.
You meet them randomly.
Well, it turns out he owns this huge ad agency. And back in the old days, ad agencies were like television commercials, billboards, radio, magazine ads.
Right.
But when the web world blew,
they didn't have
they
that
did
space.
not know
Right.
how to. They were starting from zero like all of us were.
Right.
And so he was like, "You do websites?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Come with me." And he was like, "I'm going to take 30% of everything I bring you, but you're going to have more work than you know what to do with." And I was like, "That sounds like a great deal." And it was for a while.
Did he send you a lot of work?
Oh man, immediately plugged
funded
me in.
you. That's awesome, man. You
Yep.
still got some of those
And
relationships.
he was hard, man. He'd be like, is that what you're wearing? He's like, you need to buy some new clothes. I don't have any money. Here's $1,000. Go buy dress clothes. You know, I'd show up to a meeting. He'd be like, your breath stinks. Get some gum in your mouth. Like, he was hard. But he did it because he cared.
But you know what? He made you better.
But it made me better and better and better. And he taught me. He taught me a lot about just like taking control of the situation and getting it done.
Love it.
He was real instrumental.
Do you think if you're starting a business in your 20s or you run a small business, is it good to have a mentor?
Yeah, and the thing is, what I came to realize later, if you see somebody and they're successful, ask them to teach you how they did it.
Yeah.
Because most successful people want to share the information.
I will give my knowledge away for free all the time. Now, one thing I have done is my time is getting more valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So phone calls, when people call me for business consulting, I tried this out. I was sitting there going, you know what? I was talking to these people for 2 years, building the brand Sunstoppers, helping small businesses grow, giving back all the time. And I finally said, you know, I'm going to try something. I said, I had hundreds of people in my life say, man, Mike, you got to quit doing that. I'm up 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, haven't eaten. I get in my truck. I sit in my driveway for 4 hours on the phone talking to people, coaching people, because I care that much.
Yeah.
And I was doing it for free. And these people need my help, right? So I'm empathetic to them, and I'm sitting there, and I really can guide them, and I give them just a couple of key motivational advice things. I'm like, man, you need to do this first. You need to do that first. A lot listen, a lot don't. But I value my time now, and I go, you know what? I'm going to send a guy an invoice for $250. And now what happened is I gave a lot of advice to a lot of people, and the ones I gave advice to, about 75, 80% of the people didn't listen to me. They just kind of, whatever. Thanks, Mike. It was nice meeting you. Appreciate your time. And the 30% of people that did, they're growing their business. They're opening their second location. They're hustling. They call me all the time for advice. And they're constantly making little change habits in their life, like little changes. They're changing different friends. They're not hanging out on social media, listening to negativity. I told them to drop friends. I said, drop them. If you're negative, drop them. They can earn a right to come back into your life.
Yeah, you got to surround yourself with people who are adding value to your life.
Absolutely,
100%.
I didn't know that early on. I kept everybody.
It took me a while.
It took me a long time, man, and I still have a hard time with it.
As long as you're willing to be teachable, and you're willing to ask somebody, there are mentors everywhere.
There is,
and some of them are going to charge you. But if it's a win-win for everyone, go after it.
When I send an invoice for $250. And I schedule, like 2 days later, I schedule like 1 to 2. This is your 1 to 2, and you own me for that hour.
Yep.
And I call them. Do you think they're tinting a car? Do you think they're answering the phone? Do you think they're doing bullshit? Do you think they're whatever? No, they're sitting in an office somewhere because they just Zelled me or Venmo'd me or whatever, $250, right?
Yeah.
And now they're valuing whatever the hell I'm saying. And now I'm giving 100% of my attention to their needs. All right, what do you need? What's the problem? What are you trying to solve? Where are you going? I'm asking questions.
People tend to value what they're getting if they're paying for it. 100%.
Absolutely. So I started changing my concept, going, you know what? If you pay me $250 the first time, I may give them the second call for free, just because I'm like, you know what? You just earned my respect for you.
Yeah.
You paid me for my time, which means you respected my time. And if we didn't answer all the questions to help them 100% the first time, then I feel not like an obligation, but I feel like, you know what? I'll give you the second one. Like, hey, man, call me.
Yeah, you hook them up along the way.
You know, do you mind hooking people up every once in a while?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I do that not all the time, but I do try to take those opportunities.
Early on, you did. When you're young and you're hungry and you run a business, you hook everybody up, and then some win and some don't.
Yeah, but like if someone called me and wanted to talk to me for a few, I would totally stop what I was doing to talk to them. I feel like, you know, it's our responsibility as successful business owners to start equip the people who are coming in behind us.
When did you ever think that you were successful? When did the light bulb come on?
When did I stop?
No, when you woke up one day, you went to work and you turned the light bulb on, and you go, "Fuck, I'm successful." When was that? When did the light bulb come on for you?
When I was 8.
Hell yeah. No, seriously, in your business.
I mean, in my business, look,
you started from nothing.
I always had the confidence of knowing that I could pretty much do whatever I wanted to within reason, you know.
I get it. But like, when did you have a team of people? You had staff, you had a building, you had computers, you had your wife, you had your kids, you had your house. I mean, when did you actually
I don't think I really felt free, truly like at ease until about 5 years ago.
Really?
Probably 10 years
And
into
you're
the business.
44?
Yeah.
44. So 39 years old. You finally looked in the mirror, but you've been doing websites since you were 24?
Yeah.
So 24 to 39. You grinded, you hustled.
Yeah.
You looked in the mirror every day going, shit, I got to work 12-hour days, 15-hour days till midnight, till 2 in the morning.
Whatever it took.
Whatever it took. And at 39 years old, you looked in the mirror and you go, all
I
right.
think maybe it was when I became unhappy with my CPA.
Right.
And it was immediate. I was immediately like, this is our last day. It was just not even, there was no question. And I
Right.
went and I got a very expensive CPA firm.
Yeah.
And I said, let's start today. And they said, here are the fees. And I was like, I don't care. I need it done right. And if that costs more money, then that costs more money. And I didn't have to look and see if I had the money in my account. And I was
That's
like,
powerful.
you know, like that was, it's when you,
It's when you can afford to pay for professionals to do something for you, and it didn't matter how much it cost. You were valuing
Yeah.
their time and their professionalism and said, you know what? I've got enough money in the
the
bank.
thing about marketing in general, but I think websites, as my experience has been, it's very seasonal. Everyone has their new budget at the beginning of the year, so they're buying new websites, they're doing all this work, and then people spend their marketing budgets, and by the time you get to the fall, things start to slow down. Only huge companies are working with us in the fall, getting ready for the, for
Ramp
this,
up.
Yeah,
Right.
and so for me, it was all about storing away for the winter.
Yep.
Like, did I kill enough work in the spring and summer to cover me in November and December? Right.
Yep.
And
You're a hunter, gather every day.
yeah. And so, but if you're at it long enough, you start to overlap clients, start dates, and payments, and how people pay things off. And when those layers get so thick that it doesn't matter if there's a little bit of a downturn, but it takes a while to build a book of business like that.
That's awesome, man.
I wish I was in something that didn't depend on people's budget life cycles.
You're killing it now.
Yeah, we're doing all right.
You've grown. I've seen you go up. I've seen you come down. I've seen you go back to the simple. Like, you were starting with just you and Jason, and then after Jason left, you ended up getting a little firm. You got a couple guys. You left there, got another place, got another couple guys. Then you went back to like you, and then like a support team, and then you
Yeah.
went to like an office, and then so you've rebranded, sold a business, got back on track, and now it seems like you're finally found peace.
Yeah.
It takes time.
The thing is that, like I built my first company and specialized in real estate. And so I was working with 17 home builders and 5 or 6 developers and all the major, real estate companies in Charlotte. And then 2008, when the market imploded, we lost 95% of our clients overnight. So this business I had built just evaporated overnight, and I had to start over. And so all of that up and down and going this way and that way was adaptation. If you
Yeah.
can't move, like a lot of people
So
would
what's
have
next? What's next?
People would have given up on that.
What's next? You never gave up. You said, what's next?
Yeah.
You
I mean,
knocked
it
on
was
new
sort of like,
doors,
what do
new
I need to do to
opportunities.
adapt to this situation?
Yeah.
Adaptation is critical if
You
you're going to
learned
be a
that in
business
Columbia.
owner.
You
People
had to
who
fight.
give up, and they say 95% of business fail in the first 5 years, it's because people weren't willing to adapt.
Adapt. That's number
Adapt or give up.
one. Adapt or give up. You
Go
heard
home.
it here. Adapt or give up. Mike Dickerman.
Just go work for somebody else.
If you can't adapt, give up and go work for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. So what's next on your big agenda for your career and your big corporation that you own now?
I'm trying. I think I want to get to a point where I can, I don't want to be Mike the website guy when I'm 50.
Okay.
So I look at myself as being on a 5-year exit plan right now.
Okay.
I'm trying to build up my team to function well without me. I think I've done a pretty good job of that over the past 2 or 3 years.
Sure.
But I want to take that a little bit further to where I can let go.
Yep.
And Digital Alchemy is what it is, and it's
hard
not
to let go,
it's
man.
not dependent on me. And I
That's
think
hard
that's
to
going to
do.
give me the space to reinvent what the last 20 or 30 years of my life looks
Yeah.
like.
I love it, bro. Appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, but hey, thanks for having me, man.
Is there anything you want to ask me?
What's your favorite watch?
I don't have a favorite watch.
Mm.
I'm an investor.
Watches as investment tools.
They're just investment.
Love
man.
that idea.
That's all it is. They're investment tools. It's if you have paper money, it's paper. It's only valued at something when you buy something.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have 50 grand in the bank or 20 grand in the bank or 10 grand in the bank, it's paper. It's a bank statement. Like I bought some property.
You got to keep it working for you.
I think you always have to have money working for,
sure.
you. And I bought some land years ago. And my grandfather, I've told this story 1,000 times. If you can't touch it and feel it, you don't own it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you got to go to the bank and ask for your money, it's not yours. So it's just a simple little concept that my grandfather told me. And I think I live by that principle of like, if you buy a car, buy a good investment on a car. Mm-hmm. It's the cost of ownership. So I had some friends of mine turn me on to some watches, and as I can afford them, I buy the right ones. And when you buy them, the day you buy them, it's like a car.
Yep.
It's like if you're a used car dealer and you go to the auction and you know what the book value is on this car and you say it's $22,000 and you buy it for $16,000 at the auction,
yep.
you know you can sell it for $22 grand. You know you
yep.
made money the day you bought it.
Yep.
And that's kind of like any investment. You make a good investment, you know long term you're going to make money. I just feel like you need to diversify on all types of investments. But I've got some really, really cool, expensive watches now, and I travel quite a bit. And when you're at hotels and nice hotels, my networking of people, I stem conversations on planes. Mm-hmm. I'll be wearing a cool watch, and a guy next to me will be like, hey, man, is that a AP? Is that a Rolex? Is that this or is that that? And next thing you know, if you can afford one of those, you now have a new circle of respect.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that, but unfortunately, the way we live in the world today, if you can invest in a $30 or $40 or $50 or $60,000 watch.
Well, it's a silent signal that you speak the same language. And at a certain level, that's what determines whether or not someone's like, I'm going to be your friend.
Exactly.
And they're, yeah. And
so you have a new network of friends.
Yep, absolutely.
I've got guys on planes I've met. Next thing you know, we're friends on Facebook. Next thing you know, they're inviting me to Miami.
Yep.
Next thing you know, we're on a boat. Next thing you know, we're talking about real estate deals.
Everything.
Their relationships are everything. And you know what?
Yep.
That watch opened doors for me.
Yep. 100%.
It does. So, you know, I was kind of like, I'm trying to be the country boy, you know, drive a pickup truck, live simple, go out on my farm and do my thing. And then all of a sudden it was like, you got to have almost two lives.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the same way. I live out in the middle of nowhere. I drive a truck. But if I'm going to a business thing and I got to put business Mike face on,
right.
I'm going to be all that while I'm there.
You got to be all that in a bag of chips. You got to walk in the room like, hey, you know, my name is Mike motherfucking Burke.
Well,
you've
done well. It's been awesome watching
your
evolution through life. It's been impressive.
It's been impressive.
Thanks for having me.
We just got started, bro.
I know, right?
Like we're not even scratching the surface. I want Sunstoppers in Asia. I want Sunstoppers in Europe. I want Sunstoppers global. There's no more U.S. now. I'm thinking outside of the U.S. So you ready for this?
Always.
Let's go. SEO Asia, Sunstoppers, whatever. Here we go. I love you, bro. You're one of my dearest friends, and I respect you a ton, and you're one of the hardest working men I've ever met outside of myself, and that's why we get along.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.